Good evening, and welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting for Tuesday, January 9th, 2018, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a very active agenda this evening. However, I'd like to begin because tonight is one of those special meetings of this board because we get to recognize one of the board's own. And given her long tenured involvement in Walpole, including being the first female selectman, we thought it was more than appropriate to recognize Janice Wilkins this evening. Before reading the proclamation, I do want to thank my dear friend Teddy Hagler for alerting and educating me, and Sam Obar for his diligence in ensuring Janice is appropriately honored. Sam actually wrote a terrific article, which will hopefully appear soon in the Hometown Weekly. With that as background, I would really enjoy reading a proclamation that we will be presenting to her once signed. And the proclamation goes, whereas Janice Wilkins was one of the first women in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and in Norfolk County to make history by being elected to a town's Board of Selectmen, and whereas Janice Wilkins was the first woman to win a seat on the Walpole Board of Selectmen, and whereas Janice Wilkins served as a selectman from 1953 to 1963 during a period of tremendous growth in our town, and whereas Janice Wilkins was a pioneer for other women to run for a seat on the Board of Selectmen, and whereas Janice Wilkins, at the age of 95, is the oldest living selectman, former selectman. Now therefore, we, the Walpole Board of Selectmen, take great pride in recognizing Janice Wilkins for her accomplishments, including breaking the barrier for women to serve on this board and all other boards. We extend our heartfelt thanks for her diligence and commitment to the town of Walpole, signed this 9th day, January 2018. So our heartfelt congratulations go out to her. Interestingly,
Make a motion to sign the proclamation.
I'll second that.
I'll second that for discussion. Interestingly, and it was something that Sam alerted me on this, when she was a selectman, that was back in the days when you ran annually. So you didn't have 3-year terms. And if you think about any selectman serving on a board for 10 years, annually having to run, that in itself was quite an accomplishment. She also dedicated much of her times to make sure some of the leagues and associations in this town had proper bylaws and affiliations, and truly is a wonderful ambassador for our town. So we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? 4-0-0. We will sign this. I do want Ann's signature on this, so once we have all 5, we will then go and present it to her in person. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sam, for doing this.
Okay, with the time being a little after 7 o'clock, we do have a public hearing for the change of the license category from wine and malt beverages to all alcoholic beverages for the Coffee Perch, doing business as the Ravens Vine and Tap, 108 Main Street.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0-0. Public hearing is now open. So please.
Good evening. Mark McAuliffe from Ravens Vine and Tap. Questions?
Just very briefly, take us through what you'd like to do.
Basically, since the Ravens Vine and Tap has been open, I think probably year and a half. So it's been going great. It's a little slow during the daytime, so that's why we open basically at 4 o'clock. We've been doing a lot of functions there, parties, wedding showers, bridal showers, baby showers. We've had engagement parties there, and it's been great. We've had a lot of parties there, and we generally they all want to go into the Raven's Nest, a lot of them, because there's liquor there. Even though at the parties we only have it the wine and tap, a lot of our customers would like liquor. So that's why we have applied for to transfer over to the liquor license, just to accommodate our customers, basically.
Now, is there any way structurally, Jim, that you could go from the Raven's Nest,
I think we
break
talked
through
about,
the
yeah, there
wall,
is.
and then go in and it's one license instead of two?
I think we talked about that a couple of years ago,
Right.
and there is. You have to, or I would have to, build a tunnel underneath the nail salon from the Raven's Nest to the wine bar.
Right.
I don't own the building. I don't, like, I've looked into how much it would cost. It would cost a lot of money. You know,
Okay.
This works.
I remember a couple of years ago I looked into it, but it was pretty expensive.
think at that
I mean,
time-
if I owned the building myself, I'd
Right.
absolutely do it.
Right, because it's one license for both.
Yeah.
I think at that time when you were here, we also talked about the importance of bringing us samples.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
could be wrong.
I would absolutely bring you some
I
high-end
am sure that you say that every
Yeah.
single
Yeah,
time.
absolutely.
absolutely bring you some high-end bourbon samples.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Bourbon and rye would be quite, my friend Mr. Salvatore and I would even be more hysterical.
I can bring him
than
after the next meeting if you like.
Yeah. Questions, David?
I don't know. No questions.
Just for Cindy, everything's in order, yeah. And then a comment, also you forgot, like, you're doing artsy stuff there too, like the little paint nights and craft nights, those are
Yeah.
kind of fun too.
Yeah.
Hey, Jim.
We do craft night on Tuesday night,
I know Jim goes to a bunch of
paint
them.
night. I've seen Jim there many times. He's one of our lead glass paint. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, it's been great, you know, and especially it's awesome in the summertime when we have the outdoor seating there on weekends. It's awesome there. People love it. If only we could do it every weekend, that would be great. But really, it's like you've done a great job getting that all sorted out because people love it, you know.
Good.
It's been great, and thank you for that.
Great.
Okay, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Oh,
sorry.
oh, please come on up, I'm sorry. No, please come on up and state your name and for the record and the thousands of people watching us on TV.
Thank you. Joanna Giorgio Hilvert from Mackey & Mackey on behalf of Walpole Cooperative Bank. Walpole Cooperative Bank is a friendly neighbor.
Right.
They are not opposed to this application. In fact, they encourage all business development
Right.
in the center. Their only comment is that a few years ago there was an issue with the grease trap, and I'm sure you remember there was much discussion, and a remediation system was put in place to prevent any overflow issues that had been experienced in the
Right.
past and caused some damage to the bank. We just want to ensure that with this change, I don't know if there's going to be any change in the food service or in the amount of customers, but we would just want to make sure that the system that was put in place wouldn't be overburdened by this new request. There have been no issues in the last year and a half since it was
Right,
put
and
in.
I will turn it over to the town administrator. Very valid and very fair point. Number one, we want Walpole Cooperative not to have the issues it had. I did check with the town administrator, and he'll update us in a minute, as well as with the owners of the Raven's Nest, and everything to date seems to be in order. I will say this, and by no means is this a strong arm tactic, that if there is another issue, the Raven's Nest and TAP will be 100% responsible for that. But I have the assurance of our town administrator that to date, everything is up to snuff.
Yes, just to follow up to that, I did check with the Board of Health and the Sewer and Water Department prior to coming in this evening. Board of Health confirmed they are in 100% compliance. Sewer and Water confirmed that they checked the grease trap on a periodic basis. They find no sign of excessive grease down there. We are very mindful of the situation that came up a few years ago.
Right.
We're monitoring it. We'll
Right.
continue to monitor it.
Great,
Thank you so much.
thank you.
And there, question, no change to the menu, right?
If I do make a change to the menu, again, they're two totally different businesses
Right.
while being in the same building. If we do change the menu over there and I put in a hood fan per se, I will put in the exact same grease trap I put in the
Good.
Raven's Nest.
Yeah, please. I mean,
Absolutely.
we want you to succeed.
Oh, big time.
We
I mean,
do
like,
not want
I'm
to
not
hinder
gonna,
any of the businesses.
I'm not going to spend the money
Right.
on a hood fan
Right.
to go to bat with the bank. You know what I mean? I will put in the exact same system and
Okay.
give you all the information for that when we do it, if we do it.
Good.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
400.
I'll make a motion to approve the change of license from wine and malt beverage to all alcohol beverage for the Coffee Perch Inc., doing business as Ravens Vine and Tap, 108 Main Street.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion?
This was Guido's license. They
Okay.
turned it in. So what happens is he holds on to his wine and malt until the ABCC approves the all alcoholic change.
Okay.
Okay, we have
So then
a,
there's gonna
And
be,
then he'll turn his in,
gotcha. That's what,
because he can't hold two licenses.
right,
gotcha.
good catch.
I don't want
One
to.
place.
It's just trying to understand how,
You can have two at
I
two
didn't-
places.
Two places, yeah.
Unless he's selling it on the black market.
so
we
it's
have a
really
mo-
not a conversion, it's a approval of a transfer?
Well, it's not really a transfer, it's called a change of category. It's a
Okay.
new thing that the ABCC is doing.
Okay,
He currently holds a wine and malt, so now he wants to take that all alcoholic one. So he'll still be able to use the wine and malt until the ABCC approves the all alcoholic beverage one. Once
Okay.
we get that approval and tell him, he will
Yeah.
turn in his other license.
gotcha.
'Cause he
We're
can't
also going to
hold-
put in some new windows in there that open up to the common as well, and taking out the whole front, and putting in new windows which will be the same as the Raven's Nest as well. Should be improving the building as well.
Yeah, that was good.
So we have a motion, we have a second, we had discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 400. It's
Thank you very
approved.
much.
Good
Thank
luck.
you.
Thank you, good luck.
Yeah. And thank you very much. Yep. Okay. Is Jean Nicola and Willa Bandler here? We'll go Jean first, and these are interviewing candidates for the Housing Partnership Committee, and I believe there are 2 seats open?
There are actually all seats open.
Right, I understand.
And actually, there were 4 applications, but 2 of the people will come the next meeting. They couldn't attend tonight. So you'll have 4, which means they'd be able to meet because it's a 7-member.
Great.
So 4 will make a quorum. So that'll be good.
Welcome.
Welcome. State your name, please, and your address.
My name's Jean Nicola, 4 Montrose Park, Walpole, Mass.
Terrific. A little background on yourself and why you want to do this?
I've been a Walpole resident since I was a teenager. Left for a while, came back. My mother owned a restaurant here in town back in the 70s. And I've got some background in housing, low-income housing. I've been on a few different board of directors, homeless, family shelters, and domestic violence. So I've been through, you know,
Terrific.
yeah, I've got some experience in that. I've got a college degree in mental health services, and I'm currently 3 years of criminal justice,
Wow.
my bachelor's, so.
Terrific. David?
I don't wanna put you on the spot, just
okay.
trying to but I'm gonna. No, I just wondered what you think are some of the challenges of affordability in a town like Walpole. I see you're on the board of Habitat for Humanity and several others where you may have had some background in some of these issues, and I'm just curious.
I think it's just an opinion of low-income people, I think, is the biggest challenge we face. You know, what kind of families are gonna come in, the need for the families, and I think there's a misconception, I think, a lot about the low income, what people are expecting. I think that's the biggest challenge I see.
Good point.
Yes.
Do you have any suggestions of how we can increase our stock? Like just nothing big, but what you're,
I think good screening, you know, bringing people in to let them know what we have, what we're looking for as a town, expectations of families, maybe. Where they, want to see themselves, I guess, in 5 years, maybe, sort of what they have, what they're looking for as a family. Is it something they're going to stay in? Are they going to maybe live there and improve and, move on, or kind of work they do, basically? Because I work, I've been on housing, I work full-time, I still, am on housing, so there's not, you don't have to be on welfare or on anything to get housing, so I think if you present it, it's just, you can be working and,
Mark? I'd just say thanks for volunteering. I think
you.
it'll be good to see that committee be revived. So-
Great, thank you.
And to second what Selectman Gallivan said, I know you're not doing this for the huge honorarium where the town pays you, so thank you so very much
Thank you
for your
for having
commitment
me.
to the town.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve Jean and Nicola.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
4-0-0.
Thank you.
Thank you for your,
Is Ms. Bandler here? Since the other two couldn't come, you guys can fight over who wants to be chair and vice chair.
I nominate her.
For both, right? Please, tell us,
Hi, I'm Willa Bandler. I live at 555 Winter Street. I've lived here for 12 years. And I may not have quite as relevant a background as she does, but I have both a commitment to kind of social causes, and I'm kind of an architecture nerd. I started a degree in historic preservation at BU, which I didn't finish, but I did learn a lot in that time about kind of, I took some urban planning classes. I learned kind of more what makes housing policy affect communities, like how it works in ways that I hadn't really, that wasn't what I went into that degree for, but I ended up learning a lot about that. So that was pretty interesting. And I've built stuff myself. My partner and I built the barn that our horses live in here, and so have a little bit of knowledge of kind of the building trades and kind of what it takes to get a project going, and again, not I'm not a professional contractor, but I have some kind of awareness of what makes projects like that go, and so it would be interesting to see how, like, larger things, how, like, housing projects, how that would work out. If there's a way to, for instance, rehab existing buildings, because I do have a strong interest in preservation, could we, are there structures that may be, things that we'd want to preserve but that don't have an economic purpose as it stands, that, it could be a win-win for the town, in terms of preserving the appearance and, character of historic buildings and whatever, but also providing, more affordable housing, that kind of thing. I think the biggest challenge, because you had asked her, so I'm assuming you're going to ask me, I think the biggest challenge that we face here is that we don't like apartments in this town. We really, really don't like apartments. And it's really, really hard to make affordable housing, especially in meaningful numbers, if you insist on single-family homes on at least an acre. There's just, you can't do that. We don't have enough room. Land values are too high. So, that's kind of a concern, how to integrate that into, the character of the town without, upsetting people, but also, be able to make it affordable. So that's going to be an interesting, seeing how we strike that balance, I think, is going to be really interesting. I was reading somebody, I think probably Audrey, who I know can't be here tonight, but sent me the PDF. Oh no, it wasn't. It was Sarah Khatib from the planning board. Sent me the PDF of the report from, I think it was 2013, on the, like before this group became defunct last time. I don't remember what the title was of the report, but I printed out a couple random pages from it because I had things on it that I thought were relevant. But basically, so in order to hit that goal of an additional 0.5% of affordable units per year that Because, you know, I know that part of the goal would be for the town to avoid 40B, you know, and get out from under developers being able to invoke that. So, but the problem is, in order to hit that, they were talking about that we would need to have like an additional, it was 38 units per year of affordable housing built. And then several pages later, it noted that our average over the last 10 years or whatever it was 38 building permits per year total. So I was like, well, that's interesting. They didn't draw the parallel in that report, at least not that I saw. But I was like, oh, so basically in order to hit our targets, every unit that's built in this town from now until we reach 10% would have to be affordable, which, I mean, obviously that's not going to happen.
Right.
But, but that was kind of
Great.
interesting thing that I noted about that. So,
Well,
anyway, I'm
your,
sorry.
Your passion is welcome, to say the least. David?
So yes, you answered my question. You answered it well. That is a big issue. I mean, my lot is, the value of the land exceeds the value of the building on it.
Right, mine
And
too.
so, when the last town meeting, when we had several moratoriums passed, which from duplexes to other multifamily units, some by the same people who professed that, you know, some who perhaps may have those signs that say, hate has no home here. But what they're really saying is, hate has no home here. Neither do you unless you're the right socioeconomic background, because that's a serious problem here. There is, you know, we need to be providing some of these residents are motivated because, oh, I don't want new houses going in behind me, and I don't want multifamily houses, but
Right.
as someone commented, who are they going to be?
Right.
You know, they certainly, that's certainly something that we need to look at as far as density and changing the rules and getting some affordable housing in this town.
Well, and another thing, of course, is that affordable housing, even more so than other types of housing, really needs to be convenient to public transportation, because obviously people that don't have a lot of money may not have a car at all, or they may only have one car per household, and so, you know, they need to be near stuff, and it's like, okay, that makes the land value even higher in those areas that are, you know, close to town center. So how do we get that to happen? And I don't know, but that's why I'm here, because we'll find out.
Looking forward to exploring these issues. Thank you for your answers.
Absolutely.
So I chaired the housing production plan when it was made.
Oh, okay.
And I'm already excited by both of you. Like,
Good.
I think you seem like a great beginning, and for as far as bringing in different kinds of people to make it more of a living, moving document going forward to hopefully get this moving. It seems really nice. Like, your thought process already of just hearing what you think we should be exploring, and the background of the people that are looking for this housing is very exciting. So, can I make a
Mark?
motion? Or you?
I'll just say thank you for volunteering. The other thing I would say is, you were talking about historic preservation, and the next presentation is from the Historical Commission. So
okay.
you may
Well,
want to
I'll
talk
stick
to some of
around.
those people, and you may have an interest in chatting with them in the future, so.
Thank you.
So, I also want to thank you for the time you're going to put into this. Both are extremely intelligent and passionate, and the town is going to benefit from your involvement. So,
I hope so.
thank you very much.
Thanks.
And typically, whenever Nancy sits on a previous board, she likes to tell people about it, so. This was supposed to be your time and your time alone.
You know what? Knowing that, you know, I mean, and I do remember, I was kind of skimming it, but I do remember that your name was on
Oh,
there,
sure, she
so-
has beautiful sons, and she lives in the town, she's a townie, and she'll get it all out, so. With that,
Now
let's make
you're
a
just
motion.
being mean.
See? I like her even more.
Seriously. Never met a microphone she didn't like.
I make a motion to appoint Willa Bandler to the Housing Production Committee for a term of 5 years.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. Congratulations as well. Okay, terrific. The time being 7:25, I will
Wow, right on the button.
have the chairman of the Historical Commission, Sam Obar, come up and
careful, Sam, he's fresh tonight.
No, I'm in all seriousness, I'm thrilled that you're here. I'm thrilled that we're gonna get an update. This is really important to our town, and we continue to hear wonderful things about the commission and your leadership on it, so please, welcome.
Thank you. So thank you for inviting us. So as you know, my name is Sam Obar. I'm the chairman of the Historical Commission. I've been the chairman since, I believe, 2016. I'm joined by 3 other members of my commission: Christine Cochran, who's the vice chair; Katie Burtwell could not make it this evening; George Ransom; and Roger Turner. And I know you all know Roger,
Yeah.
of course. So I wanted to talk about what it is that we do, because a lot of people actually don't know, and I assume you all do because you appointed us, but I'll just remind everybody. So we have existed since 1970. We do have an actual official function under state law, which is that we are the official advocate for the preservation, protection, and development of the town of Walpole's historical and archaeological assets. But the main thing that we do is we do have oversight over the demolition delay bylaw, which means that we have input in the demolition of any structure in town that is more than 100 years old. We are often confused with the Historical Society. I wanted to put this in here because it's important that people not think that we are the same thing. We are actually not the Historical Society. The Historical Society is a non-governmental nonprofit. It is headquartered at the Deacon Willard Lewis House in the Town Common. We do work closely with them on many projects, but we are not them.
How
So,
many members in the Historical Society?
well, their board has like 12 members. So, yeah.
What's the difference in delineation of responsibilities?
The society is more of as like they're more for storing artifacts and
Okay.
the documents, whereas we don't do any of that.
Got it.
All right, so last year we had 14 meetings plus 5 site visits. We reviewed 5 applications for the demolitions. One of them was 1641 Washington Street, 388 North Street, 234 Stone Street, 1350 North Street, and the one you probably recognize is the one at Walpole Woodworkers. There are actually 4 structures. It's known as Walpole Outdoors is the official name. Last year we also conducted a barn survey, which we're actually working on completing now. It will be complete shortly. We were extensively involved in the Old Town Hall reuse committee, and we actually, a few of our members are actually on that committee, including Roger. And I also want to mention that in March we actually held a very well-attended seminar at the Senior Center for historical commissions from all over the state to talk about administering the demolition delay bylaw. It was very well attended. We sponsored it with the Mass Historical Commission, and it was a great networking opportunity with our counterparts in other towns.
Sam, can you go back? Is it possible on that?
Yeah.
If you vote something historically significant, yet that property may get torn down, sold, and replaced with other buildings, how does that work?
Well,
And
so
pardon my
yeah,
naivete.
I'll actually explain that in a few minutes. I'm going to explain the bylaw. So here are some of our major goals. This is just a snapshot of our major goals for 2018. So we do want to make updates to the bylaw, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. We want to increase the membership of our board, which is obviously a goal of a lot of town boards. We do have 5 members right now, but we do have vacancies for associate members. As I said, we want to bring the barn survey to a successful conclusion. Start planning for the tricentennial. Roger Turner is one of the biggest advocates on this. It is only 6 years away, and it's going to be here sooner than we think. So it does make sense to start planning for that. I skipped one, which is obtain funding for a permanent part-time secretary, which I'll talk about in a minute as well. Continue involvement with the reuse committee to ensure the building's rehabilitation and preservation, which so far, I think that is going to happen. It's just a question of what the building is going to become. We want to install a plaque at Union Station because it is on the National Register of Historic Places, and we're going to hold a ceremony on that. And we actually had a Walpole native who now lives in I believe Virginia or Maryland, who actually is funding the plaque 100%. So we're very grateful to him. And then we also want to identify and begin the process to put something else on the National Register as well. So I wanted to talk about the secretary. So this was actually one of our most important goals of 2018, and there's not a single meeting where this has not been raised. We don't have a secretary, and you might think, oh well, there's a lot of town boards that don't have secretaries. So we are actually the only town board with responsibility over a town bylaw that does not have a secretary. And Jim Johnson we've had many conversations with Mr. Johnson about this last year, and so it remains one of our goals to have a part-time secretary. We did have one who retired in 2015, and then after that it was cut to 0.
So Sam, it's one of your goals. What can we do to help facilitate that?
Encourage Mr. Johnson to have it in the budget.
Okay.
How many hours a
you
week
know,
would that be?
No, but I mean,
yeah.
instead of that saying worth nothing, I want to keep it
Yeah.
worth noting, and
Yeah.
how can we help you?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we got to find $1,300
Yeah.
annually?
So yeah, we've estimated that based on 5 hours a month, based on the hourly rate of the town
And is that going to be enough? I mean, my view on this is if we as a board want to move forward with this, I'd rather ensure that we're not undercutting the commitment of time and getting what you need. And if you're saying 5 hours a month or whatever that is, let's just try to be as accurate, because I would hate to do this and then come back and say, heck, we needed 15 hours a month, you know?
Yeah, well, we think based on we think that that's reasonable, because the previous salary was $300, and it was actually when the person retired, it was actually posted as a job, but then nobody applied for it because it was too low. And the feedback we got from people was that this is a more reasonable, it's more fair based on the hours that are actually worked.
Okay.
So.
I have a question.
Go, please.
So there's already an approved job description for this job?
Yes.
And another thought is, have you guys thought about the senior work-off program?
No, but that would be a great option. Yeah, that would be super. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so now I'll talk about the bylaw, which is one of the most important things that we're here to talk about, as you may be aware. So, the bylaw has existed in Walpole since 1973. It was last updated in 2005 with only minor updates. It's currently in place in 150 cities and towns across the state. So under the bylaw, we review any demolition application for houses more than 100 years old, and if the house is deemed historically or architecturally significant, we may impose a delay of up to 6 months on the demolition. After the delay period ends, the applicant may tear down the structure. So the point of the delay period is to give the applicant and the commission an opportunity to explore alternatives to demolition that involve rehabilitating or essentially keeping the structure intact. And if we are satisfied that that's not going to happen, then we can vote to end the delay prior to the 6 months expiring. So here's an example of one of the houses. This was what I mentioned earlier, 234 Stone Street, which we voted not historically significant, so it was then torn down. So you may remember that house was on Stone Street, and I believe there's now going to be 2 houses on that lot. So 1350 North Street, this is one of our more recent votes. Some of you may be aware of this house. This is the Smith Healy house, one of the oldest houses in Walpole. It's up on North Street, so we did vote. It was historically significant, and then after public hearing under our bylaw, we voted to impose the 6-month delay. And right now, the owner is actually, which is what's supposed to happen under the bylaw is the applicant is supposed to explore ways to keep it, which is actually what she's doing. The applicant is looking into someone who might be able to move it, et cetera, et cetera. So the bylaw is working in this situation.
So you evoke the 6 months. At the end of that period, do you only get to do that once, or can you continually?
No, we only get one. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then this is the one at Walpole Woodworkers. So you may recognize this is an older picture, but this is so if you're going into Walpole Woodworkers, the parking lot on the left. This would be on the left. It's actually now, I believe, 2 separate structures. It's not connected. So this is the Melzar Allen House. Melzar Allen, very famous in Walpole. He served in the Civil War. I believe he also built Union Station, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So we actually did vote that this was historically significant, and we voted to impose a 6-month delay, and that just happened a couple of weeks ago, actually.
Sam,
Yes.
when you do that and they look into finding alternatives, do you guys help them or offer them guidance or places?
Yeah, so we usually do. Yeah, so but actually, usually the applicant. So, there are some examples. So, for example, 1034 East Street, which, as you may know, is a former Fales Machine Company, which is now torn down. So we had actually voted on a 6-month delay for that. One of the things we told them, the applicant, to do is to get a structural engineer to look at whether there's anything that can be preserved in that structure. And they actually went ahead and got a structural engineer study, which showed that actually they can't, there's nothing that can be kept intact. So we ended up ending the delay. So basically, to answer your question, yes, we do work with them. We usually give them suggestions as to what they can do. They can contact a structural engineer. They can contact, like for example, 1350 North Street, we suggested that they contact Jack Wiley on the Adams Farm board to see if they can move the house down to Adams Farm.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, but it's probably not going to happen because it's a lot of money. But anyway, so that was something that was looked into for time. So it's usually so far we've had very cooperative applicants. For an example, I mean, with the 777 East Street, that's Pulte Homes, of course. And what they wanted to do was they wanted to tear down this house, and all it was going to be was just green space. It really wouldn't have affected, this delay is not going to affect their project. And so what we suggested to them was that, you can actually keep the house. I mean, it might be an eyesore right now, but if you sell to somebody who actually will clean it up and make it nice, it could actually be a very attractive entrance to your complex. And so hopefully they'll look into that. We're fortunate that the applicant is very cooperative and supportive of what we're attempting to accomplish.
But at the end of the day, if they wanted to, after the 6 month, they can tear it down and.
Yeah. So here's some things that we'd like to change in the bylaw, and I believe I sent the board some of a summary of the changes. So basically, there are some small changes and there are also more significant changes. So for example, in section 2, we want to add certain terms that are not already defined. So that's fairly minor. Change the title of the inspector to the commissioner to reflect the new job title since the bylaw was updated. Eliminate various unneeded language. Add language that allows us to extend the time required to respond to applications with the applicant's consent. So the big thing is that we do want to extend the delay from 6 months to 12 months. So the average across the state is actually 8 months, but the Mass Historical Commission recommends that all towns have a 12-month delay. And we've received a lot of feedback from citizens over the years, including more recently, that they want to have a longer delay period. So we feel that it's time to update that. And then we want to add various language that will, for example, allow us to impose reasonable fees. Now, considering that we only get about 5 applications a year, it's not going to be a lot of money. But for example, those fees might help compensate for the fact that we might have a secretary. But that all language is taken from the MHC's model bylaw. And then we also want to take language from their enforcement section, which specifies the fine for failure to comply with the bylaw. Right now, I believe the fine is just the standard fine for violating any bylaw. So we just want to specify it in our bylaw.
I have 2 quick questions.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Well, one's really a question. In changing the name of building commissioner to inspector, is there a difference in the role?
Well, he already is called a commissioner.
Oh, okay, so it's just.
It's a reflection of the new title.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, I don't know how you feel, but as far as if this community had the Community Preservation Act, would we have been able to, as a town, accepted that home on North Street as a gift and been able to use those funds to move it to Adams Farm?
Yeah, in theory, you could use, because CPA funds you can use for those uses, yep.
Thanks.
David?
Like, I did have I see in the definition section, I don't want to put you on the spot, sort of. Sort of. But it says bona fide as one of the
Yeah.
new definitions. Where does that appear in the?
It's somewhere, it's in there somewhere. I mean, do you want me to find the page?
That's all right. I just wondered if you happen to know where.
What it refers to is during the 6-month delay, the applicant is supposed to be making a bona fide effort to find an alternative to tearing it down. So it should be somewhere in the.
Okay,
in that.
I'll look for it again. Thanks.
What would have been the case with the 5 applications this past year, if you went from 6 to 12 months? I have no issues doing that, especially if the state is saying that's their recommendation, we want to help you in any way possible. But what blowback would there have been? Would this have created any issues? I know it's a hypothetical, but not knowing this, I just want to know what situations may occur and how are we going to address them?
Well, I think, it's hypothetical because when the commission has imposed 6-month delays in the past, we've actually usually voted. The applicant has usually been cooperative, and so we've usually actually voted to end it prior to the 6 months.
Okay.
So, it's possible that if we impose a 12-month delay, it really will have no impact. But I mean, certainly, historic houses from the 1700s, of which Walpole does not have a lot left, certainly having a 12-month delay is more teeth to maybe
finding a solution.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Okay. Mark?
Yeah, I'd just say, right off the bat, I'm very comfortable with 6. I'd have to think about the 12. I'd also like to hear from maybe planning board and maybe economic development, and if there's any ripple effect. But in general, I'm pretty supportive. And I know we're not going to vote this tonight, so it's great that you're able to bring it in and let us start thinking about it before we start voting on articles in another month or two.
So what is the process, Sam?
Well, we want, who sponsors an article? I think your board has to put it on.
So there has to be an article, and again, pardon my ignorance, there has to be an article to make the changes?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the process would be, your board can sponsor this article if you'd like, or you could kick it back to the historical and say, we'd like it to be sponsored by some citizens, get the, 10 signatures, Cindy, for the annual town meeting?
10.
Yeah, so you could do it one way or another. The warrant, we are closing the warrant at the next meeting, correct? So we could have a draft of this on, but you guys would need to vote to whether or not you want to sponsor this and have it on the
Well, can we,
warrant.
I personally would like to sponsor it. Have our board do it, but you guys.
I don't have a problem with it. I like the idea of it and where it's going. The only thing is, before we're sponsoring an article and then we're speaking to it, I want to make sure that we vet it and see what the other boards that need to give input on it. Because they could be seeing something that we're missing. And so I would want to submit it, like Mark said, almost submit this over to the planning board, and just make sure that they're all in agreement, or see if they have an example as to why we should go with 8 like everybody else does as opposed to the 12, or just before we throw it out there and have our name on it, I just want to hear that input. I don't see any reason why we don't.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't sponsor it anyway, because that's a healthy
But
debate.
they might have, they might have some obvious changes that we want to go with before we do it, though.
Okay.
Much like with the building inspector.
So how can we facilitate this, because I would in 2 weeks like to vote on this?
I don't know if they're gonna.
Yeah, they all have to meet.
They're gonna have to meet, and I can tell you it's not gonna get done in 2 weeks. Just knowing how tight the planning board's agenda is, they continue their hearing from this past snowstorm, so they're already backlogged. But you can still go forward and sponsor it as is, and they can provide feedback. Because one of my first questions to Sam was whether or not this was a planning or general. So it's not a the zoning article, I'm sorry, so.
To me, I just don't want it to be one of those things that we haven't spent enough time in asking all the other boards and committees for input, and then we're pulling it back at the last minute, and it's just not looking, I mean, Sam, do you have a problem with us doing that to make sure that we have
No.
more people on
Yeah,
board?
that's a great
Push
idea.
it to the fall, then, are you saying, or?
Well, I don't know, let's just see what we get for input, so would you be okay if it didn't happen till fall? Because we
Well-
wanted everybody in like, I would want everybody on board.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think you can vote to put it on, but
And then amend it.
Yeah,
That's, we've
I
done
mean-
that several times, so, I mean, I would like this on the spring, and if we have to vote it and amend it, I personally don't have an issue, but why don't we at least go through and see from a timing perspective, Jim?
Yeah, we can close the warrant and still, we solicit feedback from town council, so that would buy me another 2 weeks,
Right.
so.
And then, but we'll do our part. To Nancy's point, I do think it's important to get as many people bought in as possible. I don't think, there's nothing truly super controversial here.
Yeah.
But the more people that are signed up for it, the better. So,
Yeah.
we'll do what we need to do. David?
I just had a couple of thoughts. First of all, I understand Selectman Galvin's concern about the 12-month moratorium. But perhaps what you could do is create a part of the bylaw that indicates that certain findings of fact have to be made in order to make it a 12-month versus a 6-month, so that it be of extreme importance, or be certain criteria, and you can figure some of those out, well, whether it's condition or importance to the historic fabric, and you know, work that in so that you may have a two level where you, sometimes it's 6 and sometimes it's 12, and 12 is made only when you make those certain findings of fact.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. I mean, how many?
Yeah, but I'm not sure of any other towns that have it that way, though, so I don't know.
I don't know if it's, it
Yeah.
may not be allowable, it may, the other thing I might suggest as well is that part of the application process be that there be a good photographic record of what exists at the time, so that even if demolition does take place, we can preserve the photographs and what was there for future posterity, and perhaps we can engage the historic society to preserve those for us. I know there, in the Rhode Island law, and in the Department of Interior standards, there is a provision like that, and there are guidelines already existent which say this is what you need to do before you demolish it. So you can look at those that, so that even when it's gone, we'll have good photographic evidence of
And
it.
Roger gets to take what he wants.
Well, actually, so as it is, we actually do usually make an effort. Roger always brings his camera. We do, and we usually do bring them to the society, and we usually do encourage them, if they're going to tear down the structure, to keep certain things. You know, if anything looks like, you know, like old rafters, we encourage them to include that in the new structure if they're going to be constructing a new structure. So we do attempt to do that. But I you know, that's a great idea.
I think David's point too, I mean, if the language could be up to 12 months to give you a sliding scale, that would be really a pretty neat way of doing it.
Yep.
With 12 being the max. How many buildings do we currently have that fall under this right now?
There are approximately, I actually asked the assessor, and he said there are approximately, there are around 1,000 structures that would be under our jurisdiction, yeah.
Wow, great.
The other question I had for the future is there any confined area of town where a historic district zoning would be appropriate? Is there a?
Well, that's an interesting question, because there's up in North Street, which is a historic neighborhood, there is now a citizen effort to attempt to potentially create a situation like that. But so our board in the past has attempted to do things like that, but the problem is you need involvement of everybody in the neighborhood, because it's a huge, because when you create, it's very complicated. So when I don't, you know, I mean, but so our commission's attitude is that it needs to be led by the citizens and not by us.
All right, Thanks.
Good. Any other
Yeah,
questions? Yeah.
I'm assuming you'd either voted this or about to vote it. It
Yes.
would be good for you to let us know the vote.
We've
once-
already voted. It was unanimous 5-0.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Great, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
the
We
update.
will get back to you on the permanent temporary, and as soon as we get more information from the other boards, we will do our best to get this on the ballot.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks,
Thank
Sam.
you for everybody's contribution. With the time being 10 minutes of 8, we'll go to open forum. Is anybody here for open forum?
I see there's a couple Boy
Yeah, I
Scouts
was
in the
gonna
crowd.
say,
Would you
what Boy Scout
like to come
troop
up and
is
say
being,
hello?
come on up. One of you, come on up. What Boy Scout troop is being represented this evening? Did you see that?
We are currently representing Troop 44 Walpole.
Great, and both of your names, just for the record?
My name's Alex Prognova.
And I'm Connor Hope.
Good. Well, welcome. Is this just one of your assignments to see a town selectmen meeting?
This is for us to get signed off on a communications merit badge requirement.
Great, great. Well, thank you for coming, and if we can answer any questions during the meeting or after the meeting, please don't hesitate to ask.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Awesome. No one else for open forum. We'll go to new business. Start with,
I'll make a motion when we're ready.
okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I'll make a motion to approve and sign the employee contract for Police Chief John Carmichael for July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2021.
Do I have a second?
Have a second.
Discussion?
Just to clarify that this was part of a negotiation that took place in executive session, that we had a discussion on this previously. The lack of a discussion here does not mean we did not go through this fully and vet all the options, and we were unanimous in our support of our police chief, and we approved this contract.
Thank you.
We
And
expect
the-
that we'll approve this contract.
And the whole idea was we had to cut, when we closed down executive session, we were done for the night. So we had to bring it back in open forum, in
ratify.
open session to ratify that, so.
And for the record, I did not participate in the meeting, and I will not be voting the contract.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained,
Aye.
301. It is done. Congratulations, good luck, and we look forward to your continued superb performance. May I have a motion to approve and sign the employee contract for Finance Director Marilyn Thompson?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Similar to the last one, we had a discussion in executive session, and we made various changes and discussed and went back and forth with the finance director. Again, we're very happy and want to keep her around for a little while. And
Some of us.
and this contract is a result of that discussion and meeting.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
400. That's done. Jim, a little discussion on the next item, if there needs to be? This is a motion
This
to
is
renew.
relating to Eastern Pearl.
Right.
You may, just a little bit of background, Cindy, feel free to chime in here on this one. You may recall that we had multiple incidences last year with Eastern Pearl. We reached out to the ABCC because now they have a couple of hearings before the ABCC, one for a 6-month suspension and one for a revocation of the license. We were advised initially by them that there was no need to renew the license, but after they've changed, they're constantly changing the rules and regulations. The most recent rules and regs require us to renew this, but hold it
We do.
Yes, we have to.
for, we're gonna hold it, but we have to
Correct.
renew it, yeah, so.
Okay.
We
Officially
spoke to
lost
the
it yet.
director at the ABCC, and he advised us that the board had to renew the license because the
They're in the appeal
ABCC does not
process.
hold the board of selectmen's decision, they get their license back.
Isn't that counterintuitive, though?
It
Help
is.
me here.
Well, they're still in the appeal process.
Correct.
Is what they're doing. So technically, it's still their license to appeal. So we need to make sure that they still have their license to appeal.
They can't
And then-
use it, though.
But they can't use it and we're holding it.
We hold it.
Because if we didn't renew it, it'd end up available for someone else to take it.
And we
And
can't give it
do
away.
that. Can't give
Got
it away
it,
right now,
okay.
so.
We good, Mark?
I'll
Yep.
make a motion to renew Eastern Pearl all alcohol license and hold until the ABCC renders a decision on the appeal.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So now that we're in discussion, David, as our legal representative, what happens if the ABCC renders a decision in favor of Eastern Pearl?
Then they get,
Their license back.
They get it back
I get it back.
until they lose it again.
I don't know if there's another step if you could appeal that or not. I don't
Okay,
know.
okay.
I don't know.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Begrudgingly 4-0-0.
It doesn't
David?
change the previous vote to get rid of it.
David?
Oh, what do you got, consent agenda?
Yep.
The consent agenda, these items will be voted as one item. They're, a gift acceptance from Donald and Barbara Aceto to the fire gift account for $100. I was gonna say that. Gift acceptance from Anonymous to the CO Council on Aging Building Fund for $580. Is that meant to be anonymous, or is that somebody?
It's anonymous. That's how I
Okay.
got it.
Okay.
Very good.
Yeah.
Request from the Junior Williams Club of Walpole to place an A-frame on the town common and commons near Plimpton and East Street to announce a fundraiser for trivia night on 1/27/2018, and to accept the resignation with appreciation for his service of James DeSalle from the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0-0.
And if I could just make a quick mention of the Junior Women's Trivia Night. It is going to be on Saturday, January 27th at Raphael's, and you can buy a table of 10 for $180, or tickets are $20 a person. If you're interested, it'll be a lot of fun. We did it last year as a Junior Women's Club, and the donations last year went towards the senior center.
Don't you have to recuse yourself from even mentioning it?
No,
Okay. Just checking.
I'm profiting from Junior Women's Club.
Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of December 19th, 2017?
Second.
Second, yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 4-0-0, and we'll turn to the town administrator's report.
Sure. 4 items to cover here this evening. Eversource, I understand that Eversource left a considerable amount of East Walpole residents without power for about an hour early Sunday morning. I reached out to my contact, the local representative at Eversource Sunday morning after receiving a text about 7:30 in the morning from Nancy asking about this. They explained that this really wasn't routine maintenance. It was part of emergency work procedures. When they discover an electrical system, he and I went back and forth, and I implored him to do a much better job instead of cutting power to people on the coldest weekend of the year.
In
It would
100
be-
years.
Yes, it would be in their best interest, the residents' best interest, and our best interest, to more or less push that off as long as possible. I'm not looking for them to endanger anyone, but what they did Sunday morning really put some of the residents in a tough situation. Nancy and I both had some frozen pipes, and it was a very cold weekend, as we all know. So they implored residents to please call their customer service line for further information at 1-800-592-2000. They're tough to deal with at times, so.
And we weren't in the power shut-off
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
And we had frozen pipes. There's plenty of people in town that it's just absolutely ridiculous. And to the people that it did happen to, as a board, we're very sorry. And it shouldn't have happened.
No, it really shouldn't have. It's inexcusable.
Yeah.
Parking. Back in mid to end of November, this board had a meeting to discuss parking with a bunch of residents and local business owners. And one of the items that came up was the dirt parking lot, as I call it, underneath the bridge on Elm Street. It was our understanding at the time that the Manzo Corp. Was going to reopen that parking lot. To date, it has not been reopened. I spoke to Mike Manzo Jr. and Mike Manzo Sr. myself yesterday, and I've been asking them since December 17th, when are we opening this parking lot? And they've been non-committal. They've expressed some concerns over some legal issues and some liability issues. Again, they were non-committal as to a firm date as to when they would not open up there. They continue to say they're going to try, but I more or less just, we're working on them. But I'm not holding out hope that they're actually going to do it. I'm very disappointed. I expressed my disappointment to them yesterday. I know your board might not be pleased with this update, and the commuters may not be pleased, but I did want to let you know. I also wanted to remind you and remind people that the center pool parking is completely plowed. DPW has made it a priority. It remains open at no charge for commuters. Commuters can call me with any questions directly, 508-660-7304. I'm open to finding other solutions here, but in the short term, I don't have one. I'm hopeful that maybe this August, your board would allow me to use the space where the temporary fire station is currently located as a commuter parking spot, to expand our parking downtown. That's always an issue. So, any questions or comments?
No, I mean, it's a situation that I wish we had an easy solution to, and quite frankly, I hate when we're told one thing that doesn't come to fruition, because there's a number of people who rely on parking. And I'm glad that at least the town pool lot is open, plowed. It's not a great solution for the time being, but it's at least an option.
Sure. Two more items. Budget message will be delivered on Thursday, February 1st in the library in the community room. I continue to work with Marilyn and Jody, our finance team, and Dennis Fliss to deliver a balanced budget. I'm 100% confident that a balanced budget will be delivered by February 1st, and more to come on that. Last item tonight, there will be snow cleanup in the town of Walpole, mostly in the downtown and in East Walpole. We'll be doing South Walpole with our DPW crews. I'm just looking to save a little bit of money since it is so early in the snow season. The cost to do some downtown cleanup is about $16,000 to $22,000 per night. So I'm very mindful of the budget here. We're still okay, but it's very early. So from 10 to 7 this evening, we will be doing cleanup down there.
Perfect.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Talking about snow and things like that, I know people are definitely frustrated that we can't move the snow fast enough for some people, and worried about plowing and just things like that. And I want to say that I think the DPW and the private plows did a great job, considering we were getting snow at, 3 inches an hour. And, it's not so significant right now today, but the rate that it was coming down, I think they all did a fabulous job. But I was wondering if the chief could come up and tell us a little bit about a young gentleman in town who went out of his way to be such an excellent role model for what a young gentleman that we want to represent our community is about. That I know he's not here right now, but his name, I'm not thinking of it right now, but his story is adorable.
Yes. So as you know, we do, the Walpole Police Department has multiple community policing programs. One of them is we call positive tickets, which is when police officers catch kids doing right in the community, they'll stop them and give them a positive ticket, which is usually also redeemable for ice cream or movie passes or whatever it might be, which we get through donations from all of the businesses in town. We also have a program called Walpole Community Heroes, which since we started it about 1.5 years ago, we've only given out, I think, 5 or 6 of those, because we keep it at a very high standard for people that are deserving for that award. So as part of, after the snowstorm, excuse me, Thursday and Friday, when school was canceled, I actually caught one kid, Ethan Tosick, who was out on his own and shoveling out the fire hydrants, snow up to his waist and cleaning all the snow away from the fire hydrant. And we also learned from another individual, he was actually he's in 3rd grade at Old Post Road School. Ryan Jackson was his name, and he was doing the same thing. And what he did is he went out and he cleared the hydrant out in front of his home, and then he figured he did such a good job at that he hit all of the rest of the ones in the neighborhood. And I think he
That's
ended
awesome.
up doing 5 or 6 different hydrants. And that's a little 3rd-year-old boy that took the initiative to go out and do that. And we thought that was very special. So we went down. We recognized Ethan at Bird Middle School, and then we went down to Old Post Road and recognized Ryan, whose grandpa happens to be a retired firefighter. So we know how he got that idea, and so we thought it was a great story, and we
Oh,
went
it's
out there and
tremendous.
recognized him for it. So
Good.
Great.
Thank you,
yeah.
Chief.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Can I have a motion to, well, actually, we
You gotta
go
read the
into-
declaration.
Yes, okay. Pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, 21A, 3 and 2, the purpose of executive session will be discuss strategy with respect to conducting strategy to possible litigation, as a discussion in an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the town's position, and to negotiate and vote a contract of non-union personnel, Chief Timothy Bailey, that a discussion of foregoing an open session could compromise the purpose of the executive session, that the Board of Selectmen shall return to open session for the sole purpose of adjourning the meeting. So may I have a motion moved to enter into executive session? We'll do that. Do I have a second?
Second.
By roll call, Selectman Salvatore.
Aye.
Selectman McKenzie.
Aye.
Selectman Gallivan.
Aye.
Selectman Kraus, aye. We will now go into executive session. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.